name is Edward Ebenezer Jeremiah Brown. I'm a football supporter of Ipswich Town. Wherever they play, you'll find me. I haven't missed a game since I was 3. With me scarf and me rattle and a big rosette, singing where was the goalie when the ball was in the net. Follow the town, up or down. I'm Edward Ebenezer Jeremiah Brown, but everybody call me Ted.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of We Follow the Town, a weekly show looking into all things Ipswich. And this week we'll be delving into the world of Ipswich Town's pre-season. We have plenty to talk about, from transfers to players being forced to train with the under-23s. But before we get on to today's show and before I introduce Rhys, I just want to bring up our sponsor, Julian Hughes. He is a golf coach at Old Joe's Golf. You can contact him at juleshughes1965@gmail.com, or you can phone him at 07382 834 199. I'll read that again, 07382 834 199. Anyway, let's get on to this week's show, because as I just said, we have Rhys joining us this week. And first of all, how have you been? And what do you make of all the transfers happening at the moment, or the lack of transfers happening at the moment in the world of Ipswich Town?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks, mate. Hope you're well as well. Well, transfers, it is a little bit strange because our owners have come out and sort of show their hand, if you like, because everyone knows that we've got money to spend. You know, then you've got the transfer fees, the players' wages, all this sort of the elements all add to it, and then you'll have all the clubs and prospective players wanting that little bit more money.
And apologies for the echo coming from my microphone. Technical difficulties, as always, that will be sorted out in the final edit. So good to get that out of the way early. But Rhys, do you reckon, because we've actually let go of quite a few high-profile players, I'll read you through a list of high-profile players we've sold so far. Andre Dazelle, quite a few to Colchester as well, including Alan Judge, Freddie Sears, Cole Scouse. Do you reckon that we're kind of clearing out players without having a real incentive of what we're going to do in the transfer markets?
Yeah, because you look at those players that especially went to Colchester, and if you're going to change the whole club, you know, from ownership through to management, you need to get rid of those big voices in there as well. And all those players they just mentioned, you know, Sears, Chambers, Scouse, who was linked, and Judge, they're all towards the end of their career now. They're all sort of getting on, maybe last season being their last. So you can't really build anything. You need those fresh voices in there, the fresh ideas. But then you look at players like Dazelle, who's gone, and Lancaster, who looks to be on his way. There is. Dazelle was a bit of a shock. But then last season, no goals, no assists. He's not really a Paul Cook type of player. But then Jack Lancaster, with that back injury, it's been very, very unfortunate. So maybe a move away, get his fitness back up, will work in his favour.
So we'll talk about Jack Lancaster later on, alongside with the players who have been banished to the under-23s. But again, we've sold the likes of Luke Chambers, Cole Scouse. That happened a while ago. Do you reckon that there would have been any benefit of keeping these kind of players at the club, knowing their influence?
I suppose that their voice and that leadership and experience is what you're going to miss most with those players. But then you look at someone like Lee Evans, who's worked under Paul Cook previously at Wigan. So it's difficult. You need those fresh ideas in there, like I've already said. But all those players, Chambers and Scouse especially, they've been such good servants to us as well. There's no bad feeling there for them to go. You know, they've only got 2 years left, so I don't see the reason for keeping them here.
So let's get on to Jack Lancaster, because it's broken today on TWTD that Jack Lancaster is on his way to Cambridge United. Now, first of all, in my opinion, I am gutted to see that happen. I thought Jack was a very good player, but I thought that injuries hampered his career at Ipswich. First of all, Rhys, what do you make of him being sold to Colchester? And should we really be selling players who have come through our own youth ranks to other teams?
Lancaster, it's very difficult with him because we haven't seen him nowhere near enough this season, especially because of that back injury. We all know he's got talent. We all know he's got ability. We all know that there is a very, very strong player for League One. But unfortunately, because of the injuries, he's not there anymore. So perhaps he needs that sort of that move away, new surroundings, that new medical staff as well to help push him on further.
So we had Jack Lancaster's dad on the show quite a while ago, and he said that Paul Lambert, apologies for that, was a big fan of him. He said that Lambert was more or less like a father figure to him, and that he really cared about his development. With Cook coming in, do you reckon that the fact that a new manager has come in has kind of more or less sealed the futures of these players at the club? What I mean by that is, like their futures away from the club.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's when you get a manager come in, like with the Andre Gazelle, especially with this, we get Paul Cook who doesn't know particularly too much about that Gazelle name, doesn't have those connections. Like with us as fans, we want to see our own come through. We want to see our own starting every week, smashing up the division. We all want to see that. Maybe you need that fresh coaching staff to have a look and actually think, okay, maybe these aren't quite as good as what we think they are, and we need to have a big clear out which is needed and was needed.
Okay, so Ryan was kind of echoes what you just said. I think the club needed a clear out and buy better players. Feel free to get involved if you are in the comments. Now, let's quickly get on to the players who we have brought in. And there aren't many players who we have brought in, actually. We've brought in Lee Evans, who we got on a free transfer from Wigan. He's 26 years old, used to play for Wolves as well. We also bought Wes Burns, I think for a fee of 200k. I might be wrong for that. But we talk about quality and the fact that we do need quality at this club. Surely we would have brought in more players if that was the case.
That's a difficult one. There's no doubt that Lee Evans and Wes Burns at this level, absolutely great signings. I'm sure everyone will agree with that. If we were under Marcus Evans' regime still, I think we would have signed more players, but not anywhere near the quality that we needed. When you buy players who have the quality, there's a lot more competition for them. I'm sure with Wigan, I think Blackpool today signed Callum Connolly, I want to say. Yeah. So there is a lot more competition. There's a lot more.
I think it was Blackpool, actually.
Blackpool, yeah. So we're fishing in a bigger and better pond now. We're going to have competition for players. But that's only a good thing, though, because we are getting that quality. And instead of getting Birmingham's fourth choice centre mid, we're on the verge of getting a really, really young, exciting prospect in Raheem Harper.
So first of all, before we go on to Raheem Harper, Callum Connolly went to Blackpool. Surely these are the players who we should be beating the likes of Blackpool too, because, in my opinion, some people might disagree here, but I think we're a bigger club than Blackpool. I reckon we're a more attractive club given where we are at the moment. Am I right in saying that? Yeah,
I think so for sure. I'm trying to think, was Grant Ward here at the same time as Callum Connolly?
He was, yeah, and we sold him to Blackpool as well. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So I'm thinking perhaps maybe Grant Ward had a little bit of a word with him. I might be totally off, but...
And he was the right back as well. We had the guy from Everton. I should really know his name. What's his name?
Luke Garbutt.
Luke Garbutt, yeah. Luke Garbutt as well. He was here when Grant Ward was here. And not Callum Connolly, but they probably know each other. So do you reckon that players like that, and I think you brought up a good point just then, do you reckon that these players kind of have an influence on the club that, the likes of, as I just mentioned, Callum Connolly go to?
Yeah, you see a lot with players' first interviews. They often get asked, do you know anyone around the club? Did they have an influence on that decision to join this club? There's always one or two voices in there that persuade them to come down. But it is surprising that he chose to go to Blackpool, though, because we managed to attract Mark Ashton from Bristol City in the Championship. We sold him the dream, because we're not going to be in League One, hopefully, past next season, fingers crossed. We should be looking at Championship and building from there. So I can't see why Blackpool, we're not disrespecting Blackpool, would be a better option to go for.
So, Ryan, was there better players are harder to negotiate with as other good teams are also fighting to sign them with us. Now, how many players have we kind of like been linked to that have never quite materialised? Because there have been many players so far this transfer window that we have been linked to. So do you reckon that, again, there are simply more attractive offers out there? Or do you reckon that we're kind of failing to negotiate with them properly?
Yeah, I'm not sure we're failing to negotiate with them. I think now we've got a proper structure with Paul Cook and these American owners, Mark Ashton. I can't see that being a problem. The only thing I can think of is maybe it's stuff outside of football. So maybe it's, with Connolly, maybe in fact stay up north a little bit more, have his family, friends up that way. Because maybe what people don't think about sometimes with these transfers, that people want to stay relatively local. They don't really want to move across the country. So maybe that had a factor to it.
So this is the perfect segue into our under-23s talk. Do you think the club will sell Flynn Downs?
I've got two answers to that. What I think they'll do and what I want them to do. What I want us to do is to keep him, because there's no doubt there's quality there. But I think we're going to sell him. I think his head was turned by Palace last summer. He never really got that same player that we know he all can be. He is quality, definitely a championship. But I think his head was turned, and I can't see us keeping him, especially now he's got the under-23s.
Do you reckon that he'll still get his Premier League move, or do you reckon that he's now going to go to the Championship? Because surely, the interest in him isn't really there anymore.
That's why football's a bit of a funny game, isn't it? You go from one season to have these, Palace after you. The next season, you have a sort of poorer season, then you're in the Championship. I can't see him having that same interest in the Premier League. It probably will be a Championship side, middle to high, aiming for Premier League.
Now, perfect. Let's talk about the under-23s, because first teamers are set to start pre-season training with the under-23s. Flynn Downs, Caden Jackson, Teddy Bishop, Armando Dobra, Miles Kenlock, Jack Lancaster, who's probably going to be sold, and Brett McGavin are set to start pre-season training with the Blues later this week with the under-23s. So one of the names in that list is Jack Lancaster, who's probably on his way out. Does that kind of give you an indication that the other players in that list are also going to be on their ways out?
You look at the players in that list, and you look at Bishop and Lancaster with the injuries. You look at Jackson and Downs with the head being turned. So I think there is different reasons within that. I don't think you can sort of categorise one reason for all. But then you look at players like Kenlock, who hasn't been able to nail down that number one spot yet at left back. He's 24. He hasn't really been able to make that left back spot his own. So I think a left back will be needed, to be signed.
So Armando Dobra is a shocking name to see on the list, really. He's a good player, loads of potential. Is he simply training with the under-23s because he is a young player? Or do you reckon that he's another player that Paul Cook wouldn't necessarily mind being let go?
Because we're in League One, it's difficult to say we'll send him out on loan to League Two. Because we're in a league now where it is a physical league. So maybe it's the fact that because of his age, he's built up some muscle, maybe have a loan spell out, but it is difficult. Personally, again, with Dazelle, Downs, Lancaster, he's one of our own. I want to see him do well. But it wouldn't surprise me if we did let him go.
So apparently Downs is understood to be interesting, or Barnsley, let me rephrase that. Barnsley, are set to be interested in Flynn Downs. So wouldn't that kind of be like an underwhelming destination for Flynn Downs? Because, last year he was attracted by West Ham, Crystal Palace, and now Barnsley are in for him. So would you kind of feel a bit let down if you were Flynn Downs?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. If you go from sort of West Ham to that, London Stadium, that big stadium feel, to Barnsley. No disrespect to Barnsley, of course, but it would be a bit of a step down. So if I was him, I'd probably prove myself to Paul Cook, prove myself I want to be here, be on this journey, and come with us. Because I'm not trying to sound big-headed when I say this, but hopefully next season, definitely by the next season, we should be competing with Barnsley in that championship. So I can't see why he'd look to go there.
So, real quickly, before we get on to the fixtures, if you can sign any player in any position, who would it be? Do you have any particular names that you'd quite like to see us bring in? Or do you just kind of like to see this position and that position as potential gaps we need to fill?
The one spot for me with the gaps we need to fill is left back.
Yeah.
I mean, he sent Kenlock out to M23s, and so there isn't really that you go through those 11 players, there isn't really, maybe Donatian, who can play left back. So that would be, for me, the one to sign. In terms of the players that we've been linked with, I'd love to see us bring in Ben Amos. I think he's a really, really good keeper. I've seen Waghorn in there. I had to mention that. That would be incredible, but that's not going to happen, is it?
So let's get on to the fixtures, and feel free to get involved if you are in the chat. So we start next season's campaign on the 7th of August against Morecambe at home. These are our first 4 fixtures. By the way, Morecambe, Burton Albion, Cheltenham Town and the MK Dons. So arguably a very easy first 4 games for Ipswich Town. So looking at that fixture list, is a perfect start crucial? Like, there's no excuse if we don't win any of those 4 games, is there?
There can't be an excuse, especially against Morecambe and Cheltenham. These teams we should be putting 3 or 4 past. The only thing I could say in regards to that is, with the players bringing in, is enough time for the players to gel. You look at a month, and only MK Dons at a push should be really challenging us. The rest of that, I think that should be a really straightforward month.
So we're also playing Newport County in the Carabao Cup. Should we really be interested in that match, or is it simply another deadbeat Carabao Cup game?
Yeah, for me, there's not interested in cup competitions. I'd rather us get out of this league and then focus on championship. No interest.
So again, reading through the fixture list, there isn't really much to talk about. We can talk about the last 4 games that we'll finish with. We'll finish with Rotherham United, Wigan Athletic, Crewe Alexandra and Charlton Athletic. So a tough final 4 games for Ipswich Town. So should it be crunch time? Should we kind of be like hanging on to the playoffs? Do you kind of see like those final 4 fixtures as difficult ones for Ipswich? Or again, do you see them as must-wins for us?
So by the time those last 4 games come around, we should be top 6. I'm trying not to sound too cocky, but we should be in it by a few points as well. Those last 4 games, apart from Crewe, are tough games. It is difficult to say on paper, because we don't know who's coming in yet, don't know who else is going out. But I'd hope by then we're in the playoffs minimum. I'm trying not to sound too cocky.
So, Ryan, are you both going to Newport at home? First of all, Rhys, are you going to Newport at home, the opening game of the season?
Yeah, I'll be there. Doing Morecambe, yeah?
Morecambe, yep. I'll be there as well. Fingers crossed, hopefully. So, let's talk about the other cup, the Mickey Mouse Cup, as I like to call it, because the Papa John's Trophy has, of course, been drawn, and we'll get West Ham under 21s in that tournament alongside with Gillingham and Colchester. Okay, don't judge me when I say this, but I'd quite like to see us get to Wembley this year. I know I kind of nodded my head at the Carabao Cup and kind of dismissed it, but I'd actually quite like to see us win the Papa John's Trophy. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, not at all. It's always nice to have that cup run within a season, to get that momentum, to get that belief for the league. The only thing I say with that is, the more games we play, we all know what the squad's like, the more injuries we're going to get. Personally, it'd be a dream to go down to Wembley and watch Ipswich. It'd be a dream to see us win a trophy. Of course it would be. But for me, I think our priority has to be getting out of this league. We've been here 3 seasons now. That's far too long. We need to get out.
Yeah. So we're also playing Colchester in that cup. So I'll read you the list of players who we will be reunited with, and it's quite a ridiculous list when reading it. So we'll be reunited with Alan Judge, Freddie Sears, Cole Scouse, Luke Chambers, probably Emir Hughes, and a few others who don't seem to be on the list. So once we do play the Ipswich Rejects, do you reckon that'll be a big game, or do you reckon it'll be an easy thrashing for Ipswich?
You got me there. I'll keep an eye on it, but like I said before, I'm not really interested in the cup games. I'll probably go because I know people in Colchester, so I'll probably go down just go see them. Just have a day out in Colchester. But I won't pay much attention to it. I mean, they might as well rename themselves Ipswich Reserves, mightn't they, or Ipswich Rejects?
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
And elsewhere, there isn't much more news in the world of Ipswich Town. Teddy Bishop is being eyed at by the MK Dons, so we've more or less spoken about what the players who are going to be headed out. Let's quickly talk about Teddy Bishop, though. Would you be upset to see him depart from Ipswich Town?
No, I wouldn't be, no. And I know it's a little bit harsh to say, but with the injuries, we were talking before we came live, with the injuries that he's had, the injury record, I don't really want him here. I think when you're saying you've got to be able to play 3/4 to the whole season, and he's just not getting there. So for me, the injuries holds him back. I'd rather see him go.
Perfect. So let's now talk about the Euros. The Euros is, of course, in full form. And on Tuesday, the 22nd, we played the Czech Republic at Wembley in what was quite a boring affair, to be honest. First of all, I was talking with a few friends earlier on before we came on air, and I said that Gareth Southgate got everything wrong in that match. Okay, we won, but we were relying on players like Raheem Sterling to score. So do you reckon that Gareth Southgate has actually got us playing well, or do you reckon that he's actually struggling to find an identity for the England national team?
Yeah, it's difficult because all of us, me, you, anyone watching, we can all name an England 11 and we'll have players separate. There won't be a starting 11 that we all agree with. There's too much talent in there. But when you're not starting Jadon Sancho, what does the guy have to do to get a start? And against the Czech Republic, Tyrone Mings, I'm not saying this as an Ipswich fan, but why did he get dropped? I know he came on for the last quarter of an hour, but for me, he's been better than Stones this tournament. He's been really good, so I thought it's a bit harsh to see him dropped.
I think the main worry for me is that because we started Harry Maguire, my main concern would be that Harry Maguire would simply make a mistake because he wasn't match fit. So why did we start Harry Maguire? Okay, he's a captain. He's a good player. But surely it's a risk during an important game to be playing a player who hasn't necessarily had that much football as of late.
Yeah, it may be different if we did beat Scotland, and then we would have been. I think we'd been through from that game. So you could use that Czech Republic game for Maguire, for Henderson to get the minutes that they needed. But to start him in a game where we had to get something, it seemed a bit weird to me. Maybe bring him on for the last sort of 20 minutes if the game's won. But I didn't see the point in starting him.
So Henderson also started that game alongside with Maguire. Do you kind of see those two players as regulars for the rest of the tournament? Because I personally wouldn't be that happy to see them starting because, again, they haven't had that much football and who knows how they're going to perform.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't have them start in the rest of the tournament. I think with Henderson, you've had Calvin Phillips come in and been incredible. He's been really, really solid. So it is harsh, because they're both the same player, aren't they? In what they do. So it'd be harsh to see him dropped because he had a really good group stage games. With Maguire, my two star centre backs would be Mings and Stones. So for me, they've got to prove themselves in training. They've got to show Southgate what we've been missing. But defensively, we haven't conceded a goal. There's no need to really change it. The only area the team I'd be looking to change would be the width with Jadon Sancho.
So you spoke about how good our defence is. On the game on Tuesday, the Czech Republics had more shots than us. They had 7 compared to our 5. They also had more passes than us and were ultimately better in front of goal than us, though we, of course, won. Does that kind of show you how well we're doing defensively at the moment? Because if there's one thing that Gareth Southgate is doing well, then that is setting up a good defence for England.
Yeah, there's no doubt that our defence is really, really capable of pushing us far. But I feel like you've got to get that balance between defence and attack, between being negative and being positive. Because I'm sure Town fans would have had this discussion with when McCarthy was in charge. For me, when you got a chance to attack, you got Sancho on the bench, you got players who come on, Grealish, comments a certain starter. He has to be. When you've got these players for this potential, so you've got such a young squad, get them out there. They're hungry, they're fearless. What's to lose?
So Grealish is a certain starter, says Ryan. Grealish, I'm not sure whether Gareth Southgate fancies him or not. Would you start him in the next game? Because his build-up play with Phil Foden was absolutely incredible in the last game, and he just seemed to kind of like breathe a new fresh of life into the squad, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's no doubt he has to start. I'm sure everyone would agree he has to start, especially when you play knockout football, especially when you have to win the game to get through. There's no second way around that. So you got to put on your best attacking players. But then it brings in the discussion about Mount and Foden. You got to fit those both in with Sterling and Sancho. So when you look at our team, in that attacking sense, we are very rich. But our defense is really solid. You don't need to change that.
Okay, so feel free to get involved in the comments. But the big question for today, and I think we were talking about this briefly before we came on air, are England a boring team to watch? You could argue in one sense that Gareth Southgate is simply setting us up not to lose, and he knows what he's doing. But if you look at it from another perspective, we are very, very dull to watch. We're not entertaining at all. We've barely created any chances. So are we boring? Or are we simply setting ourselves up to win?
We're boring. To put it straight to you, mate. Especially in that Scotland game, I'll refer to that because it was more evident in that where our plan A wasn't working. But he persisted. Where's your plan B, C, and D? Because it may not be the last time, looking at our side of the Euro straw, that a team comes against us, if we beat Germany, that are going to have 10 men behind the ball and make it difficult for us. We need to find a way to counteract that. And we're not. We played it into Scotland's hands.
I think you were spot on. And ultimately, they are a team that we should be beating. So, okay, we're playing the Germans in the round of 16. Do you have any hope at all that we will beat them? Or do you reckon that will be another penalty shootout loss?
Yeah, it won't get penalties, will it? I think over the course of 90 minutes, they're going to do enough over us. I just can't see us attacking-wise doing much. We've got all these quality players, and Grealish, Sancho, Kane can finish. But he doesn't start them. He doesn't start Grealish. He doesn't start Sancho. These are big players for these big games. I can't see us getting that over Germany. But if we do, it could be coming home.
So would you start Harry Kane in that game? Because Harry Kane has been horrifically out of form. He has, of course, been dealing with a niggling injury. So would you start him, or would you maybe start Marcus Rashford maybe? I know he's more of a winger, but he can also play through the middle. Or Dominic Calvert-Lewin?
That's a difficult one. Because of that injury, you have to be careful. You have to manage that really well. The thing with Kane, what I always say is, throughout this tournament, how many chances has he been given? How many, one-on-ones? How many times had he been set up? How many chances had he missed? It's not as if he's missing all these chances. He's not getting these chances to actually stick the ball in the back of the net. So for me, he would start, because we all know, give him one chance, he's going to score it.
So let's talk about the round of 16, because we do have some cracking games coming up that we will be watching. Wales versus Denmark and Italy versus Austria. We won't go through all the games, but one of the big ones is Wales versus Denmark. So first of all, who do you want to win, Wales or Denmark?
Denmark.
I think we all want Denmark to win, don't we?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it has to be, don't it?
So who do you reckon will win that, by the way?
So I want Denmark too, but I hate to say it, I think Wales will.
Really?
I hate to say it. I just think when you've got players like Bale and Ramsey who can change the game straight away, you have that ability to just be able to switch a gear. That for me, it will be close. It will be close, of course, but I think Wales will just edge it.
England always underestimates teams. That's why we lose, says Nick Muller. So elsewhere, there's Italy versus Austria. Italy are a very good team. I reckon they're probably one of the favourites to win the tournament. They've been incredible up front. They, of course, have great players as well. So do you reckon that Italy could potentially be winners of the tournament?
Yeah, let's be honest. When we talked about the Euros before it started, no one said Italy.
Nobody.
No one said it. But the way they've been playing for the group stage, they've been incredible. I think it's 30 games unbeaten and 10 without receiving the goal. So they're no longer dark horses. They're favourites to win now. There's no doubt.
So do you reckon that Roberto Mancini has kind of taken everybody by surprise? Because to be honest, and as you just said, heading into the tournaments, I didn't know they were this good. I thought they were going to be, like another big team who gets knocked out in the group stages. So did we underestimate Roberto Mancini's team?
Yeah, there's no doubt. We all did. We all said that they don't get far in this tournament, but the way they're playing, they're putting fear into every other team in this tournament. There's no doubt over that.
And I think you're spot on in saying that. Now, here's an interesting one. Nick also mentioned Holland as potential favourites for the tournament. Now, Holland are playing the Czech Republic. They should win that one. So what have you made of Holland so far? And do you reckon they could also be favourites? Because defensively, without Virgil van Dijk, they've been kind of, I don't really know how to say this, kind of fragile. But they can score, can't they?
Yeah, that is the thing. I haven't watched Holland throughout this tournament much, so I'm not going to pretend like I know much. But Virgil van Dijk, of course, is a massive miss for Holland. You look at their attacking options with Depay. What a player he is. We didn't see the best of him when he was at Man U in the Premier League. But there's no doubt there's talent there. I can't see Holland going too far. I've got to be honest, winning up against a team like France or Germany, someone of that calibre, they will struggle. So I can't see them being dark horses, if I'm honest.
So elsewhere in the round of 16, Belgium will play Portugal on Sunday, the 27th. Now, Belgium and Portugal, they're both teams who many people had as favourites. So do you maybe see, I know we're talking about, okay, this team could win and this team could win, but with those teams playing in the round of 16, Belgium and Portugal, do you reckon the winner could seriously go on and challenge for like the tournament?
Yeah, there's two heavyweights there, two really big heavyweights coming up against each other. And that's going to be a great game to watch. That's going to be incredible. It's hard to pick a winner, isn't it? Because you look through both national teams and there's talent, there's ability there, there's world class within those ranks. It is difficult. It's a case of maybe Belgium would just sneak it, but there's no doubt they'll go the full way.
And of course, get your questions in before we wrap up the show. Simply put them into the comments and we will answer them. The final two fixtures that are of any importance that we could mention is Croatia versus Spain and France versus Switzerland on the 28th of June. So Spain, they're an interesting one because they can score, as they showed us the other day when they won 5-0, but at the same time, with Alvaro Morata up front, they haven't necessarily got that much threat up front, have they? Despite the fact that they did win 5-0.
Yeah, they can score goals. There's no doubt in that. There's no getting away from that. But you look to me, who's the number one man? Who's going to lead them through this tournament? You look at previous winners of the Euros, of the World Cup, through any competition. There's one player that stands out, whether it's a Wayne Rooney at Man United, your Aguero at Man City, whoever it is, there's that one player there. So then you look at Spain, and I don't see that player there.
So, okay, just curious, when can we stop making excuses for Alvaro Morata? There's no doubt that he's a terrific player, though he's had a challenging tournament so far with Spain, yet a few pundits I've heard are still justifying his poor performances. So am I right in saying that, or am I being a bit facetious by stating that, he shouldn't really be playing?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, you kind of made a tournament where there's expectations on you to perform and to do well. So maybe you just crack under the pressure. You can say the same with a couple of other Spanish players, like De Gea as well. I know he makes great saves. You can say all that. But his general play as well was really poor. Can you consider him world class? That's another debate.
Yeah.
But it is difficult. I think class is permanent. Of course it is. And I'm sure once he gets going, he'll kick on.
And finally, the final game that we can mention is France versus Switzerland. France have to win that, really. But what have you made of France so far? I reckon they've played well so far, haven't they?
Yeah, there's no doubt they're 2-1 favourites, aren't they? They're odds on to win this. There's no doubt. So I'll be back in Switzerland the whole way. You look at their team, you've got Varane in defence, you've got Kante, Griezmann, Mbappe, Lloris in goal. You can go through that whole team and pick out 2 or 3 players for every position who are world class. They're rich in ability, and there's no doubt they're going to at least the final. If not, they are going to win it.
So with France, Benzema is playing up front with them. Do you reckon that Benzema is one of the most informed forwards in the tournament?
Yeah, there's no doubt over that. You look at his goals he scored over his whole career. You look at the goals he scored so far, and the goals he's going to keep scoring for this tournament as well. You look at players, and there's obviously those players who can score goals, like Mbappe, of course, as well. But he's going to be really important for this team to get them through. But there's no doubt he is going to. Same with Morata in Spain. He will carry them.
Okay, so would you like to hear the bookies' favourites for the tournament?
Let's do it.
So, so I'm going to read the first 4 out. France are 4-1 to win the tournament. England, surprisingly, and this has taken me by surprise, are 6-1 to win, joint with Italy, who are also 6-1 to win the tournament. And then we have the Germans, who are above Portugal, Belgium, and Spain. They are 13-2 to win it. I'm actually quite surprised to see how high England and Germany are, like how well backed they are to win the tournament. Do you reckon that we are really that good? Do you reckon that we are actually 6-1 favourites to win it? Or do you reckon that the bookies are being incredibly generous by giving us those odds?
Yeah, they're being far too kind in flatting us. Our contrast being second, wasn't it? Second favourites.
Yeah.
You look on paper, our squad, lots of Mount, Foden, Grealish, Saka, Kane, Sancho, and you can make a half decent case for us getting to at least the semi-finals. But then you've got a debate that we had earlier about Southgate being too negative. But that's far too kind.
So one more question, and feel free to get your questions in down below in the chat, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, or on Twitter. We will get to them. Gareth Southgate, should we get knocked out in the round of 16, do you reckon he will get sacked, or do you reckon that we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, considering our opponents, and keep him until the World Cup?
There's no doubt that us as fans, we want to get as far as we can as tournament. No one's wishing bad luck or for us to lose any games like that. It's difficult because a better manager can get more out of this team than what we're seeing, especially against like Scotland. We've no disrespect to Scotland, but we should be putting 4 or 5 past them. In fact, we've drew 0-0 is almost an embarrassment. When we're odds on to win the tournament almost, and we're struggling to beat the 3rd lowest team in the rankings. But yeah, I think if we go out with round of 16, he has to go and someone else has to take charge for the World Cup.
And perfect. But real quickly, who would you have to take over from Gareth Southgate? Would you have the England under-21s manager? Again, I have no idea who is their manager, but still. Or would you maybe have a young manager like Frank Lampard as the manager?
I haven't thought about this, to be fair. I get the attraction with Lampard, but maybe the Chelsea job was too big for him at the time. It'd be a major shock to see him have the England job. I'd maybe look at someone from within. Maybe the comments can help me out here. My mind's gone blank, but that's difficult.
Now let's get on to the questions. And Nick Miller has asked us about the Colchester Papa John's Trophy game and Luke Chambers and Freddie Sears returning to Portman Road. So would you be happy to see them return to Portman Road? And here's a controversial question. Would you be happy to see Sears score against us?
Not at all. I wouldn't be happy to see that. No. No, I'd be happy for him to score against any other club. There's no doubt there's a goal scorer there. There's no doubt. When he got stuck on the wing by McCarthy, he lost always confidence there. So I'd love to see him scoring again, just not against us in the trophy. But when they do come back, 9, 10 of them now, they will get so much to this club on and off the field that it would be harsh to give any sort of boost.
So, okay, here is a potential starting lineup for Colchester next season. I'll get it up on the screen in a minute and we can discuss it. But Colchester, with their squad, I know this is an Ipswich Town podcast, but surely they should be doing well next season.
Yeah, you'd think so, but then you look at these players, and we all thought the same thing when we came down from the Championship. We all thought, yeah, this team on paper for League One should be a breeze. We all got up in 100 points, 100 goals, didn't we? We all got there. But in League Two, surely, if these players can call the officials, they should be ripping it up. Especially lots of Alan Judge, who've got that international experience as well. There's no doubt they should be looking to get out of that league.
So here is the potential team sheet for Colchester United next season. That is absolutely ridiculous to look at. So Dean Gherkin at the back with Luke Chambers and Tommy Smith, Scouse and Hughes in midfield with Alan Judge and Freddie Sears up front. And another former Town player, I think he used to play for us in Chilvers. So basically, this is Ipswich Town rejects. Is this a good squad, or do you reckon that they're all players that are basically more or less past it?
That's the debate, is whether or not they are past it yet. You look at their experience and what they can offer off the field, and they're rich in that. On the field, it's difficult because they are at that age. I mean, Scouse had an injury. I know it won't include his age, but one injury, he was out for the season. So you do want to risk with these older players of their injuries. But for me, that's ridiculous. You know, they might as well call themselves a retirement home.
So Emma Hughes, okay, here's another controversial opinion. He's a player who could potentially play either in League One or the Championship. Should he be given the chance? Do you reckon that he'll perform well in League Two? Because he does have some doubts. He is an injury-prone player. So as I just said, do you reckon he'll perform well in League Two?
Yeah, there's no doubt that he should be. There's no doubt he should be ripped that division up. But then put a bit of down on it, when Judge first signed, we all thought the same thing, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was a weird game. Because when we had Who's on loan, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 2016, that Newcastle United volley?
Yeah, and he scored, didn't he?
Yeah, that sticks in the back of my mind. Love that goal. But, because you look on paper, and it's a totally different game to what it actually is. But that squad, or that team sheet, should be doing really well in League Two.
And that is the perfect way to wrap up the show. But before we do go off the air, tell us where we can find you on social media.
So I'm on Twitter. The handle's just there. My handle is 14. You can follow that. I'm not really a big presence on social media, to be fair. I think it's just not for me. I'm on Twitter. You know, if you follow me, I'll follow you back.
Spot on. And you can find me on Twitter at Benarie, or also on Twitter at We Follow the Town. Now, thank you very much for joining in on today's show. We really appreciate those of you who have tuned in. Just real quickly, I'm going to mention our sponsor again. I think I'm hiding it a minute. There it is. Julian Hughes is a golf coach. He coaches at Old Joe's Golf Range in Great Conrad. You can contact him at juleshughes1965@gmail.com or at 07382 834-199. He's an excellent golf coach and offers world-class golf coaching. I've already slaughtered that, haven't I? But anyway, thank you very much for joining in on today's show. We will be back next week. We do have a special interview next week with the Ipswich Town owner. I think I can announce that now. So tune in next Thursday for that. And as always, keep following the town.